we all are given different talents, regardless of your belief system. Everyone has different strengths and weaknesses. And if you see yourself continuously shrinking or, it's not a right fit culturally, you do have permission to pivot. And
Mhm.
until I looked at it from that lens, like, okay, how am I going to do this? It was really hard to shake it. So that's why when I in a lot of the workshops that I host, I talk about having choices. Yes, your choices look different. Everyone doesn't have the same amount of choices, right? But we can choose how we show up. We can choose how we energize ourselves. We can choose what we give ourselves, our talents to, and how we show up.
Hey, welcome back to the Executive Exhale podcast. Super excited to have Sophia Mikelionis today. Hi. She's a life and career coach who helps ambitious women stop outsourcing their self-worth to their resumes. As a founder of Gearing Together, she supports high achieving professionals, especially first gen success stories and mission driven leaders who are ready to lead with clarity, not burnout. Right up my alley. I love that. With 15 plus years of corporate finance experience across companies like AbbVie, Kellogg, Ferrero, and Kraft, Sophia understands the pressure to stay productive, polished, and permanently, quote, on. She's walked the tightrope herself with an MBA from Syracuse University, a BBA from Howard, and a long track record in high stakes finance and analytic roles. Today, she brings the same strategic edge to her coaching and workshops, just without the burnout, which I also love. She now specializes in helping clients reconnect to their purpose, navigating career pivots, and building boundaries that actually stick. Through keynotes, workshops, and private coaching, she guides professionals to redefine success in a way that honors both ambition and wholeness. Again, love that. And at the heart of her work is the Liberated Leader, which is a trademarked method, a signature framework designed to help women return to themselves before rising in their careers. The method helps clients recalibrate their energy by releasing performance traps, designing their power source map, which I'm looking forward to hearing about, reclaim their leadership voice through unapologetic communication and boundary setting, and to realign their lives to operate from flow, not from fire drills, thus anchoring their next level identity as joyful, centered, and deeply powerful. Welcome to the show.
Hello.
That is a lot of words to say that you seem to be an awesome lady.
Yes, but I was also burned out and I was overtaxed. So that's why I always like to point out like all these things look great on paper, but I was breaking down on the inside. So I'm happy to have this conversation because I feel like a lot of your listeners are probably sitting in that same seat and I
Yeah.
want to give them the permission to pivot a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, let's start with your story because the origin story is always really important so people understand who you are, what brings you to the work that you do. So tell us a little bit about where this all started for you.
Yeah, so I started climbing just the ladder, promotion after promotion in finance. That was kind of like my love language. And I found because I was working at fun companies, I didn't mind all the small sacrifices, personal sacrifices I was making along the way. Now, I'm not talking about anything big. I'm talking about eating lunch at my desk consistently, right? Or always checking my email on the weekend. All those things seemed okay because I was working for a fun company. Some of those, a candy company, a cereal company, right? But then when I switched industries and it was purely just the work, I
Mm.
realized that it was a complete culture misalignment and that all these little sacrifices along the way, one that really got me was the fact that my commute was an hour and 20 minutes each way. And
Wow.
there's so much of yourself you lose when you're stuck in a car, right? Like at first it's fun, right? With the podcast and, like trying to, just check out all the scenery. But, by the time I was getting home, I was drained. I was irritable. I was a complete jerk to my friends. My husband was like, "Who are you? Why are we doing this?" And
Mhm.
I looked at what was causing it. And I'm like, it's my work. And it's so tough because we work so hard for these accolades, for these positions, for these promotions, and at the same time, it's those golden handcuffs, right? It's that beautiful paycheck that funds so many bells and whistles around us, but how do you find a balance? So when I joined that role, I knew day 2. Tammy, I knew day two that it was a disaster, but I
Mm.
could not tell my husband that because he was such a champion. Yes, you can do it. Women can do anything. I believe in you. So that's when I started weaving small habits into my day, into my week, so that way I wouldn't lose myself as I stayed in this role that I knew was draining me.
So you talk about the role draining you. Was there sort of like a trigger moment or like a time, a snapshot, a place where the fork in the road kind of just appeared and you're like, wait a minute now, this cannot
Yeah.
continue. Was there
Yeah,
that?
well, it's so funny because, like, looking back, there were so many little things along the
Right.
way, right? It was the involuntary eye tweaks. Like, why is my eye twitching? This is weird.
Oh,
Oh, nothing. I'm just working on the spreadsheet again, at 10 p.m. No, 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 that didn't get me, Tammy. What got me was because I had to leave so early for that commute, I would see my kids maybe in the morning, like before the sun rose, and I would get back in the evening and I would do my hair, my daughter's hair, maybe every 2 to 3 days, just put it in braids. And when I went to kiss her goodbye, I looked at her hair and I was like, oh my goodness, this is like a rat's nest. Like, what's going on? How could I have missed this? And I'm like, when was the last? I haven't done her hair in like a week and a half. And that's when I started realizing, like, wait a minute, so many women really want to be mothers and can't be. So many people want to have a family and don't. I have one, and yet I am neglecting it for all these other things. So that's
mm.
really when I realized, like, okay, something has to give, something has to change. It was that realization.
God, that is so relatable for a lot of us women that are out there in the executive world. As a fairly new executive myself, I remember like so many evenings outside drinking wine, so many evenings wishing that I had could do something different because the days were so long. And I had a pivotal moment. It was during COVID though, but it was like that 14-hour day. My husband had made dinner and he brought dinner up to me. And I actually remember it. It was a steak dinner because he had barbecued that night and brought the steak dinner up to my table upstairs where I was doing work. And I had a call at like 8 o'clock at night with the senior leader in the organization. And I thought, what the hell am I doing? I mean, I know I have to do this work because it was important work, but I just felt so drained. And I remember getting off the call feeling so devastated that I was stuck. I felt stuck. So I'm wondering then, you have this experience. You're like, I haven't done my daughter's hair in a week and a half, and it's so relatable. Um, so then what did you do next? Once you've had that realization, walk us through the storyline around where you went from that to kind of where you are now.
Yeah, so I mentioned before it was roughly like day two when I knew it was a mistake. Me noticing my daughter's hair, maybe that was like month two when I was like,
Right.
oh boy, this is a disaster. So I knew for a fact, month two, I have to leave this role, but I don't know what I'm going to do next. And of course, every other job that I was looking at, for some reason, I don't know about you, but every time I look for a job description, it was like a magnet. I would always gravitate to the roles that say, can function in dynamic environments, high pace. And I'm like, is that what I really want? So
Yeah.
I realized that yes, I could hop and get another job immediately, but I really needed to figure out what I wanted and what my values were and what would work for where I am now, not the 22-year-old that entered the workforce. So
Mhm.
that's when all of these habits that I was talking about, like I weave them into my day as I started the job search, because, a job search that's a part-time job.
Yeah.
I realized that I needed to not only be strategic, but begin mapping it out. I needed to understand what is it about my role that I like and don't like. But forget the pros and cons list. I made it more of what is draining me and what
Mhm.
is energizing me. And then what makes me happiest. And then once I could map that out, I was able to kind of figure out, okay, this is where I need to go next, right? I like to lead people. I like to be in those roles, right? But the demand, the pace, something about it is killing me. And funny enough, I was confiding to my manager, hey, I don't think this is a fit. And he said, hey, perhaps you should take a sabbatical. We have a company policy. But the issue was you had to be in that role for a year. So I was like, okay. So that's when all those small habits kept me going. But by the
Right.
time it came up, the time for the sabbatical, it was time for me to take the sabbatical. I was already burnt and extra crispy. I was like, I can't do this. So I took some quiet time away, like a quiet sabbatical. And then my coworkers started reaching out to me like, hey, Sophia, I don't know where you are, but help me with this, this project for Bill, or what do you think Caitlin would like? And I just began giving them advice unsolicited. And I was leading with those habits in mind. So, hey, when you do this, hey, make sure you actually get a good lunch. I know, when you're hungry, you can't put together a good presentation. Hey, what about all that invisible labor you're doing? I know you're doing too much. So me helping and facilitating in that manner, it kind of brought me into mentoring and coaching, but I realized there was so much of a win in workshops because then people have the epiphany in real time and they're able to implement it too. So I know that was long-winded, but that's how I
No,
got
that's
there.
great. A couple of good points that came out
Yeah.
of that. One of the thing is that, well, first of all, I agree with you on workshops because experiential is the best way to get
Yeah.
people to understand and to kind of have the whoa, I didn't see it that way, or wow, that feels really different. So workshops are amazing for that for sure. So essentially, you became the mentor once you started implementing these things. You saw what worked for you, and as
Yeah.
people are reaching out to you, kind of help them out. One question I do have, and I know how I kind of managed it, but I'm curious as to how you manage that gap. So, for example, and the gap is we have these values, right? These internal, external values that we have, and our organizations and companies will have their sets of values,
Yeah.
and they're either explicitly or implicitly implied, depending on how your leadership is leading. How do you reconcile? Like I have a goal, let's say I have a value of work-life balance where I'm home by a certain time frame, but your leadership is like, nah, man, we need you at that 5 o'clock meeting. So how are you reconciling that? Especially so many women out there are trying to balance, and I struggle to use the word balance. I really don't like the word balance, but they're trying to figure out how to make this flow properly.
Yeah, it basically breaks down to small habits that you weave into your day to make that possible, right?
Yeah.
So, for instance, if you take a lunch hour, like truly take a lunch break away from your desk, away from the screens to recharge, and you
Mhm.
make it purple. If you're using Outlook, you can make it purple on your calendar. You can set an out of office. I am out of the office. That automatically tells people I will be back. I will be back, but I need to go recharge. That opens your mind to creativity, so that way you can show up as your best self when you get back to your desk. Because sometimes we find that we're working later and longer because our mind is everywhere. You can't focus. And
Mhm.
often it's because of those small concessions, those self sacrifices we make along the way. So that's why it's all about small habits. I'll give you another example. Sometimes it's about narrating the load that you're carrying, right? Like, when you have your one on one with your manager, you're sitting there. Yes, I understand. All of these deliverables are needed. Everything's according to, moving according to schedule. However, this is your time to showcase that the team is running beyond their capacity. To mention that, hey, I understand that this deliverable is due, I don't know, within 2 days, but we're not going to make it. And just honestly having a firm and confident conversation with leadership, because too often we are the glue. We're doing everything from everyone. I remember in one role, our deliverable was contingent on another group giving us something in time. And it was always late, it always wasn't consistent, and it was frustrating. And so often, I and my team, we were like picking up the slack to get it together. But instead, like, number one, in that one on one meeting, let's narrate that to our manager. So that way, not only on our peer level, do these people know, hey, we need your deliverable provided differently, but also for that to kind of be, water cooler banter between senior leadership. Oh, I hear your team, your team doesn't necessarily do things consistently. So that's one thing I would say is to narrate those things. And we need to be okay with not juggling all the balls. You cannot do it all because well, let me correct myself. You can do it all. I don't want to tell you you can't,
Mhm.
but you will be at the bottom of the to-do list every time. And that weighs on you. So that's why I want to encourage people to look at like the guilt trap. Like, okay, maybe I don't answer that email immediately at 5 p.m. Who else will pick up that slack, right? Does everyone else on my team know where those files are stored? Is the deck that I put together, is the appendix, should I just remind everyone, hey, the appendix has any additional information and resources that are available? And it's creating that consistency. Like if you're not going to work on weekends, you're not working on weekends. Let's communicate that and let's help them understand that that's your line.
Mhm.
One other thing that really irks me that I really want us women, us executives to stop doing is I want us to stop putting that, on out of office, it says, I will be checking my emails periodically. No, stop. No, I will be away from Friday until Monday. If you have any questions, please reach out to these people. But we're setting ourselves up to be tethered to our phone, tethered to our emails. And that's why it's these small boundaries that we need to set and narrate along the way to create more of to your point, not necessarily balance, but to create just more of a dialogue around
Yeah.
what's going on.
The one thing that really floats to the top for me is the notion of boundaries, right? Time boundaries, space boundaries,
Yeah.
acknowledging the load and narrating your and leveraging leveraging your own assertion, your own leadership skills to sort of stipulate what's going on, to acknowledge the stress and the load that everybody's experiencing. To me, that's a boundary around load and time and energy and all those things. It's amazing because one of the things I always tell people is there's power in the pause. So that notion of taking lunch and just slowing down to speed up. I love that statement that you made around focus, and we know this from it's biology, guys. It's biology. I will knock people over the head with this. When you are in sympathetic nervous system because you're in fight, fight, fawn, freeze, you are not creative. You are not able to think strategically. So when you take this pause, as Sophia is suggesting, you're allowing your body to recalibrate. That pause allows you to recalibrate. And it's amazing how much more focus you can get when you do that. Leaders have this lie that they tell themselves they can't take the break.
Yeah, and I also wanna say in that pause, sometimes there's so much discomfort there, right? You're like,
Uh-huh.
"Oh, I feel so bad because I know I can give them a quick yes," right? Like, "What do I do? What do I do?" And I just wanna remind everyone that that discomfort and that pause, that doesn't belong to you. That belongs to the other person who is giving you this unrealistic demand, this unrealistic expectation. 9 times out of 10, they know it's unrealistic. That's why
Mm,
they're looking for you to co-sign, to say, You can do this, right? You can." And
right.
that pause, it's okay. And but I just want you to reframe how you see that guilt and just the discomfort in that moment. It's not yours.
And I think being okay with not having to do everything is so powerful as a statement in and of itself, because
Yeah.
one thing I always used to say when I was exec, I'd say, you know what? I can do all the things, I can do it all, just not all of the time and not always by the same people. And I know that people used to go, well, that means you can't do it all. I'm like, no, I can do it all. But I
Yeah.
have to have, it might not all be at once. We might have to phase it. We might have to prioritize how we do it. We may have to layer. It might not all be at once. And I think that was the key message. And leadership didn't always want to hear that.
No.
That
No.
was the
No.
unfortunate part.
Right, because we're always wired to one up ourselves, to level
Uh-huh.
up. Like, we need to do this more efficiently. We need to do this quicker. We need to do more with less resources. But honestly, until you speak up and you narrate that you are at your limit or that the bandwidth or the deadline doesn't quite work as expected, leadership won't know and they'll keep giving you more and keep giving you more. Meanwhile, what's happening to yourself? You
Mhm.
you aren't sleeping
Yeah.
consistently. You're waking up thinking about emails. You aren't eating a well-balanced meal, let alone a hot meal. And let's talk about hydration. Often we forget. I remember when I was working my demanding role, I wouldn't even leave water at my desk because I knew that I would have to get up to go to the
Yeah.
bathroom. So I was like,
Yeah.
no, no, I need to focus, deep work. I have to be so productive. No, your body needs water. Like, what are we doing?
Yeah, totally, and that eye twitch is because your magnesium was low. And the other thing too is, but here I wanna name something that I know you and I both have experienced in our roles. I don't even have
Yeah.
to know you to know that we've experienced this. The thing that's like the elephant in the room is our gender. And I bring that to the table because I wonder, I've been pushed back sometimes and I've been told, "You're not a team player. You're difficult. She's just being hard to work with, as opposed to decisive and strategic." Now, not everybody I've worked with was like that, but I did experience that level of bias. So I'm wondering, like, how do you work with your clients who are maybe experiencing this in terms of trying to maintain their boundaries, but at the same time they're being pushed because they feel like, well, if I don't show up in this way, I may not get that promotion. They may see
Yeah.
me as difficult. I might be the first to be fired if there's a reduction. So I wonder, how do we support our fellow ladies out there who are struggling with this?
Yeah. So first thing I do is I always keep a record of my wins. And
Right.
I know often we wait until the end of the year. Let me try to remember what I did. Let me go through my calendar. No, I keep a daily tally of everything that I've done and all the wins. And I keep it handy, like on my desktop saved. Okay. So that way, like as you do use some of these boundaries or you push back on some of these deadlines or unrealistic things, number one, you have it top of mind. You know what you're capable of, because that's the thing. Often the perception around us, it eats us alive, right? But if you can see what you've done and you have a record of it and you can remember, hey, I have done A, B, and C, that gives you a power position when you are talking to a lot of your our peers of a different persuasion, I'll say. Um, but also being firm in that. Like, yes, I talked about looking at the pause differently, like who owns that. And it's like, yes, I am being assertive. Yes, I am being firm, but that's your problem if you can't necessarily handle it. Now, I'm not saying, to be completely rude, like, no, we
No,
can't
no, of
do this.
course. Of
Yeah, yeah,
course.
yeah. But also just being firm because at the end of the day, we all know that companies downsize like nothing, right? I just snap my fingers, like they just downsize like that, right? So that's why we have to look out for ourselves and begin to, like in that one on one, when I was saying, hey, we need to narrate, we could do this because we need to push back because that's a good time to name drop yourself. Hey, let's not forget, like last quarter, we had savings of XYZ. Sometimes you need to bring that to the top
Mhm.
of the conversation before our peers get in their emotions. Like, wow, she always says no. No, she always reminds you that this team truly, saves the day or does have these concrete wins that are
Mhm.
helping. So listen up before you judge. So I would
Yeah.
leave with something like that.
Yeah, I think that's excellent. So you talk a lot about first gen success. I'm curious about, like, as a first gen success story yourself, what additional pressures do first gen professionals carry that doesn't really
Yeah,
get?
so as an African American woman growing up in the States, I grew up with my grandparents in the southern part of the United States. So I think that says a lot for anyone who knows history. But as I was a student, I remember my grandparents making a lot of concessions along the way, self sacrifices. Like, yes, we're going to get you to this practice on time. Yes, we're going to make sure you have, I'm going to do without to make sure you have. So a lot of their definition of success lies solely in the paycheck, in the
Mhm.
title, and happiness, work-life balance. They're like, please, did someone spit in your face? Get out of here. Go show up at work. Figure it out. We got you here. So having the conversation with my family about not being happy in the role, I'm telling you, that got a lot of eye rolls. But I helped them realize that um, they had a different set of skill set, right? That they prepared me for the world that we live in, and our world is just a little different, right? I mean, there was no smartphone when my grandmother was growing up. That's just a fact,
Right.
right? So I need to put boundaries in place. I need to stand up for myself differently. And yeah, I don't have a fancy title that you can brag about at a at your choir rehearsal.
Right.
But this is what fuels me and this is what I need, and you're gonna have to trust me. Like I know what I'm doing. So it's those conversations that I had to have and continue to have. But also I built a support system around peers that have like experiences who get
Mhm.
me, who champion me, who remind me not only of what I've overcome, but like what I'm capable of. And often when you continue to make so many self-sacrifices, you lose not only who you are, but you don't service your talents. Like, we all are given different talents, regardless of your belief system. Everyone has different strengths and weaknesses. And if you see yourself continuously shrinking or, it's not a right fit culturally, you do have permission to pivot. And until I looked at it from that lens, like, okay, how am I going to do this? It was really hard to shake it. So that's why when I in a lot of the workshops that I host, I talk about having choices. Yes, your choices look different. Everyone doesn't have the same amount of choices, right? But we can choose how we show up. We can choose how we energize ourselves. We can choose what we give ourselves, our talents to, and how we show up to succeed. So that's just a little bit about uh, little Sophia.
Yeah, it's so powerful to bring that message forward because I know a lot of my listeners, they're not all white like I am. There's a lot of African Americans and African Canadians as well who listen to this podcast. So I think it's an important message to bring that to the fore. So I appreciate that very, very much. And finding community in that message is so powerful because one of the things that I found, I don't have the Black Canadian, African Canadian experience. I do have a female experience and I come from a very blue collar world. So I would be deemed the first generation success story in my family from the perspective that I was the first to graduate from college, university. I was the first to make six figures. And so from that perspective, we share that story, only that story. But what's important about that is I found when I was burnt out and when I was challenged with the demands of work, it was the female leaders that I had as mentors that we connected and bonded. And in fact, some of them are still my best of friends today. And we support each other still, even so many of us have left our field. So the notion of community and of mentorship, super important point that you're bringing to the table today. I really appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I love the fact that it was people that were in similar situations
Yes.
as yourself that you
Yes.
built your community around. Because often we just think our work bestie, who we complain to, is our community, and sometimes that doesn't help you level up. You need, like-minded peers or truly like a board of directors that pour into you, but can also hold up a mirror as well.
But I would even expand that even further, though. It's great to do that. And from my perspective, it was really important to also not create my own little echo chamber. It was important for me to reach out to other communities and groups who maybe had similar struggles like yourself, who weren't the same, don't come from the same socioeconomic, cultural backgrounds, but still we connect because that's how we learn.
Yeah,
And
I
I,
like
I
that.
I really appreciate that so much. The other thing I wanted to ask, though, is given the differences in messaging that you received as a child to now, what did you have to give up in order to be able to lead sustainably? Like you talked a lot about what you learned, but what did you have to give up in order to be able
That awesome paycheck. I gave up that awesome paycheck. I gave up bragging rights from my title
right?
because let me tell you, I loved sitting down at a dinner table and people talking about what they do. And when I would tell them what I did and where I worked, they're like, really? How did you do pricing for a candy company? Wow, tell me more about it. Like their eyes
Yeah.
would just light up. Is it like Willy Wonka? I loved it. So I gave that up, but I realized that I was also giving up being a jerk to my friends. I also realized that I gave up like not being present at the family table because my mind is on the next email. I also gave up all of those vacations and holidays where I'm there physically, but my body, my nervous system is still like in alarm mode. Hey, I hope Bob picked up that email. I hope everything's going well. I promised him I would check periodically. So yes, I gave up those things, but I also gained so much more. So that's how I had to reframe it. And to this day, I don't necessarily talk to my family about what I do because I know they don't get it and I know they don't respect it. So I just remind them that I am eating. I am in a warm house. I still drive a car. Like things are okay.
Things
And
are
look, my
okay.
daughter's hair is done.
And you have a smile on your face and you're
Yes.
feeling more
Yes, yes.
relaxed. Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. I want to dive into the liberated leader method because I believe you state that it focuses on returning to self before rising. So
Yeah.
why is that order so important? And walk us through that method a little bit.
Okay, so this reminds me, I worked with one client, Lindsay. She was a type A to the nines, okay? Like class A, type A. She was a know it all. And she knew that she wanted to pivot, but she didn't know how. So,
Mm,
her and I, we spent a lot of time. We actually carved out time consistently to look at what were her values, like
mm,
what made her happiest last. Because often happiness was the day I got married. Happiness was the day I graduated from college. No, but what recently in this last week? And then we parsed it down to what in your week made you happy and why, and how do we add more of that to your week? Because often I find that when you're in a senior leader role, you're always in the fifth gear. You're always thinking about the next step, who needs what. But you got to downshift a little bit to get closer to who you are so that way you can show up appropriately. So once we were able to identify her values, then we were able to find small habits she could weave into her day. Like she loved movement, but she was tethered to her desk. She had one of those cups, those insulated cups, that keep hot beverages hot for extremely long period of time. And I said, that's great, but do you realize that you're tethered to your desk? Sometimes it's nice to have a mug nearby so that way you have a physical reminder to get up, to go change your environment, to do things. So those are like the small habits we were able to weave into her day. And then once she had space to think at the coffee machine or while her tea was brewing, she was able to have some confidence around setting those boundaries and leadership. And then we looked at her week and we carved out how to do that consistently and how to own that pause. Who owns that pause? Is it you? What to do with that discomfort? And then then we began to map out her next steps and how she could keep it going. So that's the framework in a whole, but it's us executives who know what to do, but it's setting aside the time to do it and to activate it because often we're waiting for HR, we're waiting for senior leadership, someone to give us permission. But it starts with the mirror and looking from within.
Yeah, and one of the resistance pieces I often hear, especially when it comes to things
Yeah.
like mindfulness and pauses, is I don't have time for that. I don't have time for that. So what do you say when somebody says, I don't have time for that?
You're right. You don't have time for that. You have time to continue to work until it's midnight. Great. What are you investing in by doing that? You're investing in unwell habits, in bad posture. You're investing in being, like further away from yourself. So yes, you only have a limited amount of time. So if you want to invest in that and continue to double down on those investments, go for it. I'm just asking you to carve out a little time. And a lot of these habits are doable. Like changing to a coffee mug instead of one of those insulated cups so that way you can get up and stretch your legs. That is doable. That'll cost you 2 minutes, right? But you just moved your hips. You just change your whole physical, the four walls around you to like reset. So I would encourage those type A's to rethink just what are you investing in? Because if you keep waiting until that vacation, oh, I'll unwind on the vacation. Guess what's waiting for you when you get back? All of the work, all of the unrealistic expectations. So that's why you have to just pivot a little bit, show up a little differently, so that way everything else around you shifts.
The thing that I love about all of that too is as a former registered nurse, I like to underpin it in the health impact. So what you're saying about the smaller mug and getting yourself up, right? People don't realize your blood is pooling in your legs. And as the older you get, the more likely you are to have a clot develop in your calf and then you're going to have a heart attack or stroke. So my point being is all these little things over time. And I had a client who would say to me, I don't have time. I don't have time. I said, so if you don't have time for mindfulness and resetting your nervous system, and you don't have time for a little bit of exercise to move the body, then the time will be taken from you at the end of your days when it's going to shorten and shorten and shorten and shorten. So, if you have that massive coronary at 55 because you didn't take care of yourself by standing, by walking, by drinking, by taking your medication, by taking a break, by resetting yourself, then you will have lost all the time that you could have gained had you just done those little things every day.
Yeah, I agree 10 times, 10 toes down on that one, especially because I actually took a vacation, a dream vacation to Paris, which I couldn't relax. It's a whole different situation. But I remember seeing so many older people there trying to walk the cobbled streets. And of
Oh
course,
my
you're talking
gosh.
to other Americans when you see them. And this one woman, she said to me, she was like, this has been my dream. I worked and worked, and I'm so happy I'm here. She was like, but I didn't realize, how hard it would be to walk the cobbled streets. And to your point, like you don't think about those type of things. You're like, I'll do it later. And that's the thing, those cobble streets, I mean, that's not like a step. That's not a huge step, but it takes a lot of mobility. It takes core strength. It takes all these things that we need to continue to invest in. And when you're tethered to your desk, you're tethered to the deliverables. Yes, it can pay for your trip there, but you pay for how you show up.
100%. And I mean, I gained like 40, 50 pounds in the space of about 3, 4 years just from sitting my butt at my desk and not getting up and doing the things and not eating properly and so on. I'm just now starting to kind of gain control over that. But it took a long time. And I remember my doctor saying to me, like, when are you going to do this? Because you will drop dead if you do not continue, if you don't change the way you're working. Like you're on your way to your first heart attack. So I think that's the thing that people need to realize is that these little choices that Sophia's bringing to the table today are really imperative, not just for the day-to-day management of your stress and your overwhelm, but your long-term sustainability and longevity depends on it.
Yeah,
It's
and
just, yeah.
and Tammy, I want to ask, like, at this point when your doctor told you this, you were a registered nurse, like you knew better. So why were you so stubborn?
Because you know how this is. You know it's right, but you don't do it, right? It's like we know the candy and the chocolate bars and the candy bars are bad for us. We still eat them, right? I think it's becomes there becomes a point where you just realize that you are worth it. I think that for the longest time, and I want to talk a little briefly before we start to wrap up. I really want to talk a little bit about the notion of self value and how we value ourselves as professionals and as execs, as women in particular, because I don't think I felt that I was worthy of my own attention and self, because I was always giving, 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 giving to the workplace and to my family. I have 3 young kids, blah, blah, blah. And so I feel like, I don't know, I guess I just didn't feel I was valuable enough for that at that time. And as I start to heal and start to reset my nervous system and start to realize, wait a minute, now I do want to live a little longer and I do want to be able to travel and not have pain in my hips. And you know what? As a registered nurse who worked in the emergency room, I cannot tell you how many people who waited for retirement to do all the things, and then they come in with a stroke or heart attack or they've dropped dead. And I'm like, I'm not waiting until I'm 65, 70 to do stuff, because I don't even know if I'm going to have a good body by then.
Yeah.
And so I realized if I want to give myself a chance of a little more longevity and a little bit more life in that longevity and some peace along the way, I had to take care of myself. So,
Oh, absolutely.
doing the mindfulness, now I fast, the weight's coming off. Finally, things feel like they're more balanced. But it's taken me 3.5, 4 years to get here, and it came, like you said, daily decisions every day that you just practice and you just make it a priority.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, and it's so funny because I I deal with in my workshops, you meet so many different people, and there was this one young lady, Sarah, she knew it all, but she said to me, she was just like, "Sophia, I don't know who I am outside of work." She was like, "You're talking about what made me
Sure.
happy this week." She was like, "I don't know." She was like, "To be honest, I'm so burned out. Yes, I was able to, make this deliverable. I got this thing done on time, but I feel nothing." And I,
Mm,
I, I asked her, I was like, get out a sheet of paper and write just 3 adjectives that describe who you are. Like, who are you outside of work? And I mean, she was listing all these things. I'm type A, I get things done. I'm like, okay, outside of work, outside of that, keep going. And I mean, it took us a while to get
you
there,
drain the
but
well. You drain the well.
yeah,
Yeah.
but often our worth is just so much attached to what we can do, what we can give. And that's why it starts with the mirror. Write down, like, who are you outside of those things? And then we can reorder, reframe your day and your week to actually incorporate bringing some of those things to light. Because I mean, if she loved tennis, I mean, she's like, I used to be an awesome tennis player. Okay, let's figure out how to do that consistently within the month, right? The quarter, somewhere needs to be there if that's who you are and what you enjoy doing. So I would agree.
Such a great exercise, folks. I highly encourage you do this. I did this with my first coach as well when I first left my job, and I got to tell you, it was very powerful because I did the same thing. I'm a mother, I'm a wife, I'm, an honest friend, I'm all these things. I'm like, no, 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 no. Who are you?
Yeah.
Who
Yeah,
are you at
exactly.
your core? So that's an excellent exercise to start somebody off. I guess the other thing I wonder is for the ambitious woman who's like really quietly wondering, like, man, can I just keep going like this? You talked about habits, you talked about those kinds of things, but is there a truth under there that she needs to hear right now? Like if you had to say somebody who's struggling right now with their stress and their overwhelm and they've started to put habits in place, but they're really still struggling, like, is there a truth that she needs to hear?
Yeah. Yes. You are a hero for everyone else. You're a hero to your team. You're a hero to processes that don't work. You jump right in. Oh, that process didn't work. Let me jump in. Let me have my team jump in. You're killing it everywhere else. But how are you a hero to yourself? And
Mm,
you are waiting for someone to tap you on the shoulder to say, "Oh, yeah, take a week off and figure out your life." You're telling yourself, "If I could just eat, pray, love, I'll figure it out." No, no one is coming to save you. You are going to save yourself. Today is the day that you're going to just begin to prioritize something small. Maybe it's going to sleep consistently. Maybe it's getting off your phone at a certain hour consistently. Maybe it's getting up for your desk, but you can choose a small habit to decentralize work from your life because no one else is going to do it for you.
Man, I feel like I could talk to you for hours, but I probably should wrap this up at this point in the game. We've been on here for a while, but um, any final words of wisdom or thoughts as we close out here? And where can people find you?
So I have a YouTube channel, Gearing Together. I talk about more corporate truths that you
Mhm.
need to unlearn in order to keep your job without burning out. Because, you know, a lot of times people say, you got to quit your job to start over. I don't want you to do that. I want you to keep your job. I just want you to show up differently. And that's what it's all about. I host workshops. And if you like what you heard, bring me to your team, bring me to your affinity group, because more women, especially women of color, we need to hear this so that way we can encourage each other and we can begin to change the status quo, because burning out should not be the norm.
I love that so much. Thanks again for being here. I really appreciate you.
Likewise, thanks.
No problem at all. Folks, all of the links are going to be in the show notes. So, your YouTube channel, your website, I'll make sure that they're down there for people to connect with you. Thanks again, folks, for listening to the Executive Excel podcast. If you've got anything out of this podcast today, please do all the things like, share, subscribe, follow, do all the things, because it really does help get this information out to other leaders like you who maybe want and or maybe need to hear this information. In the meantime, until next time, stay grounded, stay inspired, and remember to exhale.